Again, this we are going to discuss in the next class itself, but at least try to understand why we are trying to get this kind of analysis done, right? Let's say any company, right? This data I've taken from the internet about an automobile company. So they have collecting customers data, right? Potential customers data. They have conducted a survey. They have this kind of information available with them. Gender of the customer, married, whether that person is married or not, age, graduation, whether they have completed or not, what kind of profession, how many years of experience, then spending habit, right? Low, average, high, though we do not know how they have defined that, right? What do you mean by low, average, and high? That factor we do not know. And family size, right? These are the information right now we are available with us, right? And the company wants to understand, do these people, do this group of people, whatever, I think 2000 data, around 2179 customers, right? The information what they have got, right? Do they create different segments, and out of that segment, out of those segments, is there anything which is attractive for them, right? And that is what they want to understand, right? Any think about any startup or any established company. Once they start collecting, like either through a market survey or they have a database, right? That again we'll discuss. Either this information you can collect going to the field, getting the information hands-on from the field, or you will have a CRM database from where you are collecting that information. But whichever way you have collected that data, right? First you have to set your objective, right? Why, what is the, like, why you are trying to conduct a segmentation? It might be for a so like kind of a product launch, or it might be for a like, let's say, salesperson distribution, right? Okay, this segment have a higher percentage of customer, and I need more salespeople there. Not only always for the product launch, any kind of marketing mix on the pricing side. So if you find out there is a premium segment, as of now you have not. So let's say I create a segment, very small segment, but their spending habit is very high, right? So can I target those 200 or 300 customers with something like additional kind of whatever I am selling the product? Along with that, can I do certain kind of cross selling, right? Or can I do a upselling, right? Say that rather than buying this car or buying this product, you can go for a premium version of that product, right? So your segmentation objective will define what kind of segmentation you want to carry out. How to do the segmentation? There are different methods. We'll discuss the rules, how to understand different kind of segmentation. That part I will discuss. But first part, you have to be very clear that why you are carrying out the segmentation, right? If you are conducting a market research, like I said, objective has to be very clear, right? Okay, I need I need to carry out segmentation for a product launch, or to target a particular group of people who might give me a premium amount. So I'll change my pricing strategy, or I might change my advertisement strategy. Because here, what happens? You are going backward. I have the data. I'm going to carry out a segmentation. But I tell you what should happen. I should define my segmentation, like kind of why objective. Why am I going to carry out segmentation? Then go to the next step and check for the data whether I have the available data. Here, if I want to understand whether which group of customer and what kind of advertisement I should target, I do not have, to be honest, I do not have that information. Because with this information, I cannot know that, okay, to whom I should send email advertisement, to whom I should send WhatsApp, to whom I should advertise through this kind of Twitter and Instagram, or let's say your Telegram, right? So unless I know that the usage, which out of this customer who are much more involved in using Instagram, which people are much more involved in Twitter, right? Otherwise, I'll make a guess which might, or I'll make an assumption which might not be correct, right? I might say that, okay, these people are doctors, engineers, all those professionals, they might be using much more Twitter. Again, that is my assumption. That might not be correct, right? So I need to, if my segmentation objective is to create a particular or create my advertisement strategy for each group of customers, understanding what kind of social media or what kind of channel they are interested in. Because unless I have that data, I cannot do that kind of segmentation, right? So that is something, again, you have to first define what is your segmentation objective. then find out to find like carry out that segmentation whether you have correct data. If that data is not available, you have to collect data, then carry out segmentation, right? Then obviously the next step is whether the segmentation which you have done is correctly representing the market or not, right? Reliability, validity, we'll discuss that later. Let's say I have this kind of data set, right? Gender, marriage, whether that person is married or not, age, graduation, what kind of profession that person has, work experience, spending habit, then family size, right? So generally, if some of you have downloaded that software, you can go to that software. Where is that? Just a moment. Okay. So is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for anyhow, like I'll discuss this in detail in the next class, just to show you that how to like carry out the segmentation analysis. So you can import data, whether it is a text file, a CSV file, or a Excel file. You can import the data. I have already imported data. This Excel file I have imported. Right. So the next stage. So there are different analysis tool. If you go to this analysis tool, there are a lot of analysis tools which you have already done, regression, correlation, all those things we have already done. So if you come here, cluster analysis, there are different kind of cluster analysis. Will be much more focused or whatever we are going to discuss in this. One is hierarchical clustering, one is non-hierarchical clustering, right? What is that again? Theory part I'll discuss. Don't worry about that. But mostly in our study, next class, we are going to cover these two, right? Hierarchical clustering and k-means clustering. Let's say I choose k-means clustering. Okay. So here it will ask you for the variables, right? What kind of variables? So I have to say, let's say age is, and we'll see that how to choose the variables, right? Right now, just for example, I'm selecting certain variables, but that part, which variables based on which you should do the segmentation, and sometimes it will show the error also, right? Those things we'll discuss in detail. Let's say this is the data of 2,189 customers I have. I take age is one variable, then work experience, and then family size, right? Then add that, put OK. Label variable, I want to label them by, let's say their spending score. Minimum clusters too. So here in, so again, like I'll discuss those in slides later on, but difference between hierarchical clustering, non-hierarchical clustering is non-hierarchical, it starts randomly, starting putting points in random fashion, right? So there is no hierarchy in such, right? Hierarchical clustering means it start calculating the distance from each point to other, then find the either shortest distance, average distance, or largest distance. Accordingly, get into a structure hierarchy. So that is where the dendrogram or the tree-like structure comes into picture. Non-hierarchical means it start calculating all the points, it start looking into all the points, then random fashion it first put into different clusters. The like and in non-hierarchical clustering you have to mention how many number of clusters, right? So how many clusters you want to form, that will depend upon you. So this step is basically go through the hierarchical clustering, find out how many clusters you want, then define it this in the k-means clustering. Again, the theory part, mathematics part, I'll discuss later on, or today towards the end of the slides. So one thing you have to define in minimum clusters, maximum clusters. Okay. So once you do that, just put it run here. So it is shows that how many like in so it has created, because I have told minimum to maximum 5, it has created based on the calculation. This calculation part how it does, we'll see. 3 clusters it has created. Uh, these are the means of those clusters: age, work experience, right, family size. These are the standardized means, right? That's why if you see these are the numbers are different, right? If you go to the like kind of, sorry, these are the standard deviation means. If you go, So cluster one, if I want to define, average age group of that cluster is around 55. Work experience is close to 1 year. Family size around two, right? So there are 914. Similarly, if I go to the cluster 2, average age is 33. Cluster 3, average age is 36. So see the difference between these two. Age wise, there is not much difference. But here, if you see work experience wise, that is a large difference. Similarly, family size, here on an average 4, here on an average 2, right? So that is around 797 people and that is 467 people, right? So these you identify, okay, I have created three clusters, then you can decide whether to have three clusters or whether you want to reduce two clusters, right? Then the next step is to identify, because this analysis is nothing but it is showing whatever mathematics or whatever numbers you put into the software, it gives you certain results. Now how to use this, right? So if you put that, okay, whatever cluster IDs, is my this screen is visible, I'm not sure which screen. uh, are you able to see something like cluster underscore id 4xs? Okay, so this shows that for individual id, like, so this file I can, what I can do, I can do file export as a excel file, right? Now what I can do, now I know that where does this customers lie, cluster 1 2 3 4, which kind of cluster they lie, right? Now what I can identify, let's say cluster 1, whether that cluster 1 is mostly female or mostly male, right? What is their spending habit, low or medium, right? So those will be your descriptors. So segmentation variable, when you discuss, one is base variable, which based on which you are creating clusters. Let's say I go and conduct a survey, I ask that on an average, like kind of how much do you spend in a please, let's say this kind of OTT platforms, and how many hours you spend in watching these OTT platforms, right? Then you will get those data like that. I ask three, four questions, right? Number of hours you watch or spend weekly basis, number of money, amount of money you spend monthly basis in subscribing to OTT platforms. Then what is your average spend, kind of eating out or going out in a month? Like that, I three, four questions I ask, right? So those are the questions which are my basis on which I'm doing this segmentation, right? And let's say based on that segmentation, I get two or three clusters. Then for each of those respondent, I have collected additional information also. Information about their age, information about their, let's say, whether they are student or working somewhere, then about their gender, right? So that becomes my descriptors or identifiers. So what happens now, once I do that segmentation for cluster one, let's say I identify that, okay, mostly female, of age group from 20 to 25, average age group is 20 to 25, and they spend around 300 rupees or 250 rupees per month on OTT platform. So that becomes my segment description. Like that, whatever different segments, I'll describe it, then put that, okay, whom to, like according to my business objective. Let's say there is a group, very small group, 50 or 60 people, who are of business profession, but they spend around 500 or 600 rupees on OTT platforms because they are subscribing to all the channels, all the OTT platforms. If my business objective is from, let's say, Netflix or Hotstar, so I will target those customers who are spending around 600, 700 rupees so that I can sell them a premium package, right? So that is where my next step of targeting will come, whether depending. So before my targeting has to happen, I have to identify. And for identification, because if and anyhow, I'll show you a slide and it will be little better to explain that in a way. So remember, whenever we are segmenting, right, the questions which we are asking to customers or respondent, and based on which we are segmenting, will be depending different from the questions, or depending different from the information on which we are identifying them, right? Because the questions which you are asking on survey may be, like I said, how much amount of money you spend on OTT platforms, how many hours you spend on or watch OTT, like different channels in a week. Generally, how much you spend going out, eating out with friends or colleagues in a month, or how much money you spend in, like buying different things on Amazon or Flipkart, right? So these are the variables on which I'm getting trying to understand their spending behavior, right? What is the how much money or whether they're spending high, low, on average. Once I have that kind of information, and I create a segmentation, I create a segment, I use this kind of tool and I create segmentation. Then I try to kind of divide them into groups and I try to identify those groups, right? So again, we'll take this, and because I have not discussed many things, if I go to analysis, go to cluster analysis, let's say hierarchical clustering dendrograms, right? So here, if you see, there are different linkage type, single. So there are different methods of creating clusters. Then there are different distance also. I think all of you know what is Euclidean and Manhattan distance. Euclidean means if let's say there are 2 points, right? Uh, let's say two respondent. One person's age is 23, and he has work experience of only 1 year. Another person age is 45 and he has work experience of 20 years, right? So I have two variables, x y coordinate, which is defining my respondent. Let's say there are no other variables, I have only two variables, which is one is age, another is my work experience. So one person who is one respondent who is 23 and have only 1 year of experience, another person who is 45 and he has around 20 years of experience. If I want to measure the distance between them, right? So there are two ways to measure it. One is Euclidean, where I'll say x1 minus x2 square of that. Like you remember the Euclidean geometry, right? Distance between 2 points is distance between the x variables, square of that, plus distance between y variables, square of that, then take the square root. So that is your Euclidean distance, straight line, right? So shortest distance between two lines is the straight line, right? So if I want to find the length of the straight line, the formula is like in this case 45 h minus 23, so that is 22, square of 22, plus work experience is 20, minus the other person's work experience is 1, 20 minus 1, 19. 22 square plus 19 square, square root of that. So that becomes the distance between two respondents, right? Manhattan means it is like a city grid. If I want to measure the distance between 2 points, the one person who has age of 45 and a work experience of 20 years, another person who has age of 23 and work experience of only 1 year, the distance will be absolute distance between them, absolute distance in x coordinate plus absolute distance between y coordinate. So what is the absolute distance between x coordinate? What is 45 minus 23? 22 plus their work experience is 20 minus 1, 19. 22 plus 19. So that will be your 41, right? So that is will be Manhattan distance. So how you are measuring distance also will depend how many clusters are you are creating and what is the distance between them. And obviously there are how those cluster point, like when I say that in a cluster these points will be there, right? So there are different methods, right? We'll discuss in detail what does it mean, what is a nearest neighbor, furthest neighbor, average method, Watts method, right? So these are we'll discuss in the next class and we'll go through in detail. But if you have not downloaded this, please download this software. Uh, at least it will be helpful when we carry out that exercise in the next class. Okay. Uh, Let me just quickly jump into segmentation analysis. So the calculation part and the software part we'll discuss next class, and there will be a class exercise in the next class. Today I'm not keeping because you have a quiz today. So market segmentation analysis, as you know, segmentation is part of your segmentation targeting positioning to identify potential group of customers, right? Whose needs within groups are similar, right? So that is the meaning of clustering, right? In the cluster, the points are such that the distance between those points, whatever distance measure I have taken, right? So are small, and between clusters the distance are large, right? And that is why we are using clustering method for our segmentation. Then targeting out of those three segments, then the next step will be depending upon the business objective. Okay, this segment, which is maybe there is a larger segment, 1,000 customers, but they are not spending, their average spend is only 100 or 200 rupees. But I have around 200 customers, on an average they are spending 1,000 or 1,500 rupees. So which group I'll target? So there is no ideal or standard answer. Depending upon what is your business objective, you have to look whom to target, right? Then positioning, right? Before you start that positioning campaign, you have to understand where do you want to be, right? So that is your like kind of from the product manager or marketing manager, you have to define that marketing goal for your product right in the beginning, whether you have to be in the premium segment or in the like kind of luxury segment, right? So that depending upon which kind of market, right, which kind of product you are in, right? So you have to define that, then go to the customers and see that how do they perceive your product, right? And that is where we'll draw something like preference map. If I go and do a survey, like say for any product, let's say right now I'm using this ThinkPad, right? I go in for a laptop brand, I start doing this survey. How do customers perceive this product along with the competitors, right? So your preference map has to happen with a relative to your competitors, right? So there is no absolute preference. So whenever I'm carrying out that survey, I have to give the options for competitors also. Let's say top three or top four competitors. Then I can come back and draw that preference map, right? Where does my product lie in relative to other competitors? Then I'll see that okay, whether whatever my positioning, whatever positioning I was thinking of, is that the same preference or perception customer has? If there is a big difference, then my marketing strategy need to be modified accordingly. Think about in this way, like any like this laptop company, right? So they are trying to target student or the business persons, right? But if those I go and carry out a survey and from students, business persons, IT executives, right? And my laptop brand is perceived as a something which is very like costly and uh, kind of not user friendly, right? If let's say I'm looking into those two dimensions, then they are perceiving different than what I want my product to be positioned, right? Positioning is from my end, positioning is from the marketer's end, perception preference is from the customer's end. Ideal scenario will be when they are close. Obviously it cannot be exact, but at least they are in the same quadrant. I want my product to be the like let's say user friendly and average, so that is my positioning statement. But when customer is perceiving, customer is preferring the product, so they are looking, they are comparing along with the competitors, they find my product in comparison to competitors less user friendly. Then my marketing strategy, so when I say marketing, product itself is a part of market, right? Somewhere I need to have bring some product innovation also, right? So this is where step by step, first you find out your segmentation, then you find out the most profitable segment whom which you want to target. Then once you have identified that target segments, go to that target segments and find out that how do they perceive your product in comparison to competitors. If they are what they perceive is close to what you position your product, then you are good. Go and launch your product. If there is a difference, then like go back and kind of think about your marketing strategy, relaunch your product, or let's say redefine your product strategy. Not necessarily every time that has to be a product change, because unless the perception changes, no matter how good your product is, it will not, people will not buy that product in the market, right? So those are the three steps. So segmentation, identifying target, targeting, selecting target segment, positioning, creating competitive advantage, right? So that's why remember positioning is always in relative to competitors, right? So whenever you are collecting a information survey, because most of the times for positioning you have to go and collect data, right? It won't be available. Segmentation data, sometimes you have a CRM database, customer information will be available, right? Based on that, based on the like purchase they make, let's say for Amazon or a Flipkart, so they have all the customer data set, right? So they can analyze that and most profitable customer segment they can target. But for positioning, how does customers perceive Amazon in comparison to Flipkart, Myntra, and IKEA for the fashion products, right? That you need to go and collect information from the market, right? So obviously these are the like kind of advantage of steps. marketing resources can be much more focused in wherever the lack, wherever there is a like things to be improved upon. Customers develop preference for brands that better meet their needs and deliver more value, right? That is where you're targeting. When you are targeting customers, it should match with. So let's say you are kind of Maruti cannot target those people who are like millionaires, right? Because their requirement is on the status side. Their requirement is not on the mileage side. Their requirement is also whenever they are riding that car or driving that car, it should show certain status symbol, right? So that is where you need to be careful. That most be the most profitable segment because they are rich, they are like kind of going to pay you a lot of money. But whether do you have that kind of car, whether do you have that kind of product, right? So when I said that okay, that is a profitable segment, you should have a product for that profitable segment. So it doesn't mean that okay, this is the most profitable segment because I'll make much more money. So let me target that. I should have a product or I should have a service for that, right? Or in the other way around. So let's say there are number of customers are very huge, right? So if I take these 2,189 customers, let's say there are 1,000 of them are students. So half of the customers are students, but they are not right now current market. They are not my customers. It will take 3 to 5 years for them to become my customers or much more than that. So am I going to, because the number is large, am I going to target those customers, right? So that is something when you are looking into profitability, you have to also look into. So that is where you're targeting. There are different variables when we talk about targeting. Profitability is one part. Whether you can reachability, whether you can reach out to those segment, whether you have a product fit for that segment, right? So those are the factors we have to consider. Again, we discuss that. Customers become brand supplier loyal, repeat purchase, communicate favorable experiences. Brand supplier loyalty lead to increased market share. Anyhow, this is what like when you talk about a customer lifetime value, right? As a customer, we always try to get a regular customer, and they should keep buying our product, right? So short-term segmentation applications, Salesforce allocation, call planning, channel assignment, communication program. I was talking about the advertisement, pricing. The customers might perceive your product that okay, they are not, they are very pricey, right, in comparison to competitors, right? Today's competitors and my current relative advantage to the customer, right? When I have that segment, I go and carry out that perception or preference mapping. I have an understanding where the customer see myself, my company in comparison to competitors, right? Longer term, mostly for emerging needs to identify what are for a particular customer segment. Uh, right now, if you see, like, think about a furniture company, right? Most of the companies are providing this remote work from home opportunities, right? So that is a new need which is emerging because 2 years back that need was not there. It is not that people were not buying furniture. But if you just look into the statistics in last 2 years, the furniture companies, the high-end furniture companies are mostly focusing on remote work furnitures like work desks, those like kind of additional chairs, whatever you keep on the table, different items, different accessories which is required for your remote work. So basically, you can convert your home into a remote office, right? So that is where that need has emerged in the last 2 years. Right? New and evolving market segments to serve, right? Millennials or right now, if you see, lot of company are after this Facebook got into the meta mode or metaverse mode. Lot of companies are looking into that segment, right? At like augmented reality or virtual reality. So that itself is a evolving market segment, right? Planning for segment development and growth, right? It is not only that okay, I have a segment and I should target. You also, like I said, let's say I have 1,000 and Harley Davidson does it better. So Harley Davidson knows that okay, they have a product, people will not be, most of the people will not be able to buy that product at this point of time, but they create that future image in student, future image. So they create these bike rallies, they sell their jackets, they sell their products, nearby universities and all those things, right? So what happens, those student who after 3 years or 5 years will earn, and they can now kind of can afford those kind of bikes, so they are creating a future need. So what happens right now, obviously they know that those students cannot buy, but future they might become their customers, right? So they're increasing that segment, growing that segment, right? Not in kind competitor threats, satisfying customer needs in different ways, right? Lead user identification and management, again, like typically find out who are your loyal customers, who are your regular customers, or which are customers who will be loyal, right? Market driving customer focus, sometimes like I said, you do not have a, you find out that in that segment, in that area there is no competitor, right? You also do not have a product, right? So that area is lying very open, so you jump, you are the first one to jump the bandwagon and join there and create a product for that, right? So that is where your new product concepts emerge, right? If you find out, you carry out a need-based segmentation, right? Uh, we used to do that like a very simple analysis. What we'll ask that is only two questions. What is the particular need, or what is the particular kind of requirement for from this product, right? Are the current products are able to meet that need, right? It is a very simple two questionnaire having two questions. Obviously you can include other information, but our like kind of analysis only focusing on those two questions. What is your current need or requirement from that service or product? Are the current competitors are able to meet that, right? Now what happens, let's say in a need score out of 0 to 10, what is the importance of your need is 6 or 8 or 7. Let's say for electric vehicle, if I am carrying out this survey, uh, I have for electric vehicle, I have four parameters. One is mileage, one is look or aesthetics, one is, let's say, number of people who can sit, right? And fourth is the like charging hours, right? How much time it takes to charge, right? So for each of the four questions, I ask those two sub questions. What is the importance of that need for you in a scale of 1 to 10? Whether the current products or current electric vehicle, whatever vehicles, are able to meet your need in a scale of 0 to 10. So importance of that need, importance of, let's say, your power of the vehicle, or importance of the number of people who can sit in that vehicle, then number of, like, whether it is a 4-seater, 5-seater, 3-seater. Tesla right now currently launched the 5-seater, right? Similarly, third question might be how many hours, the importance of number of hours it takes to charge the vehicle, right? In a scale of 1 to 10. So those are the importance scores. Then I find out current, whatever the companies are there, whether they're able to meet the needs in a scale of 0 to 10. If they score 10, 10 means there are products in the market who are able to meet the need. 0 means there is no product in the market who are able to meet the need, right? And when I take the difference, right? So there is a importance score and there is a need score. And if I find out for which of the variables, which of the factors, there is a huge gap. From customer side, there is a very importance of that need, but from competitor side, there is no product. Then I should focus for my product. I should focus on my product, that okay, I should launch a product putting those variables or including those variables, including those parameters, right? So that is where your market driving or customer focused segmentation comes into picture. So this is what I was talking in the beginning. First, you have to understand why you are carrying out segmentation: business understanding, data understanding, data preparation. We'll discuss what do you mean by data preparation. Very simple steps we'll take in the next class. Then modeling, again, we are not going to write some codes. Automatically software is doing it for you. But if you are using R and Python, you have to write a few lines of code, right? But in our case, we are just going to just click on that clustering analysis. Yeah, we'll discuss different types of clustering analysis, right? Then evaluation. Then this is the most important step, because here the software only what will tell that okay, 3 clusters or 2 clusters, how you are going to use that, right? So that is where you will put in your database, export that file, update your database, right? Okay, these are the 3 clusters or 4 clusters, and these are the identification of those clusters, right? Then accordingly deployment will happen. Define segmentation problem. We'll go one by one. So define segmentation problem. Objectives segmentation. What is the objective of segmentation? Whether you have resources, what are the constraints? See, objective doesn't mean that, okay, like I said, it can be a long-term objective, it can be a short-term objective. If you want to launch this product in next 3 months, right? So your short-term objective will be to find a profitable segment and see that whether whatever your perception, whatever your positioning of your product is matching with customers' perception, and launch the product accordingly. But if you are looking into creating a new product, finding out depending upon customers' needs or requirement, your survey objective will be different. Accordingly, resources required will be also different, right? Database review. Most of the companies, unless it is a startup, they do collect the customer data, right? In now today's world, when we are putting all our information on internet, companies pay money to Facebook, Amazon, to get your information, right? So they will have certain information available with them. Understanding what information available and what information you additionally need, right? So that is what, as a market research analyst, you need to be careful on that, right? What kind of data is most suited to answer the business problem? Like that time I was giving that example. If I want to understand the advertisement strategy, right? What kind of advertisement or what channel of advertisement I should use for my customers? So one information which is must, that okay, what kind of channel particular customers are much spending much more time. If I do not have that information, no matter what other information I have, income, gender, all the information will be available to me, but I'll not be able to use that information, right? Socio-demographic, firmographic in case of a B2B, right? So let's say TCS is trying to build a security software, right? Cyber security software, right? So if you see industry-wise, there are a lot of companies, 50,000 or 1 lakh of companies in India. Whom to target, right? What should be the minimum revenue? What should be the minimum employee size, right? What kind of variables you should consider to do that segmentation, right? If you are like carrying out that for TCS. Past behavior, purchase data, scanner data. Scanner data is for those FMCG product, right? A point of sales data. People go and buy products, and that product or those product codes get scanned. So this is little easier in US market, right? Which is little difficult here, because if you see our unorganized retail is much more in comparison to organized retail. In US and developed countries, organized retail, almost everything is organized retail. Here, lot of, even in, if you go to even in the tier one cities also, lot of purchases happen in unorganized retail. You go to the your nearest grocery shop and you buy certain item, right? Organized retail, we are talking about the modern retail outlet. Regular, you go purchase item, those data get scanned, information is available in the database, right? So let's say HUL or PNG or ITC want to carry out certain study, they can request those data. Obviously, that agreement has to happen between different modern retail outlet. They can get that data and they understand that the consumer behavior pattern, right? So how, what is the quantity consumers are buying, and you have the consumer information also, right? Their amount of purchase, different items they are buying, and that is where all those market basket analysis, cross selling, upselling will come into picture. Deep needs, benefits, sort, and perception for this most of the times. So if you see, like if I go step by step, these data will be available to a certain extent, right? Almost all the companies to certain extent will have this data, right? Even you are a startup, you can get this data from the internet. You can pay to like different social media companies and get this data about the location, age, gender, all those information you can get. Pharmographic, you can pay to consultants. Sometimes it is available in the government website also. This data is easy to get. Little difficult to get this kind of information. Purchase data, scanner data, unless you have a tie-up with your distributors, modern retail outlet. These data will not be available to you. Purchase data, past behavior data, how much for the last 2 years or 3 years, how many times they have bought our brand of toothpaste. These information, unless, like I said, little difficult to get this information in comparison to socio-demographic. Then the next one, deep needs, benefits, or perceptions. Most of the times you have to go and collect primary data, right? You have to send a or maybe appoint a market research agent to collect this data and do that analysis for you. So if your problem can be solved in the first stage with the first set of information, you are happy. You do not have to pay more. If second set of information, additional information, you have to pay a little bit more. Third set of information, you have to put a lot of effort. Where research agency has to go put their manpower. It will take certain time to collect data, come back, then analyze it, right? So this is where you have to find out whether market research is required, database marketing is required. Use the available data, usually behavioral, shopping habits among my existing customers. Like if I have this data from the modern retail outlet, I can get this. Market data, do segmentation analysis on a small sample of customers, but leverage the insight across the entire market customer base, right? So you have to choose, like if you do not have the available data, you have to go again. Remember, market research means obviously you cannot go to all the customers. You have to take a sample data, sample information, and make a claim about the population data, right? Then what kind of information you collect? How do you go and collect? This part already you have discussed, qualitative. So if I want to understand why that need is arising, right? That example which I was giving, furniture company want to introduce some of the remote work of furnitures, right? So what kind of need is arising, why that is arising, right? So those will be two different questions. What will be like different type of what kind of products they want, what is their price range they are willing to pay, right? Why will be answering on, okay, somebody is working from home, they need little desk or they need chairs where they can comfortably sit, where it should not be sharp edged because children will be there, they'll be running around. So those are certain behavioral questions which will come from your qualitative data, right? It might, you might not get that information from quantitative. Okay, this is what I was talking about, right? This is important. Always remember, whenever you are carrying out segmentation, right, two different sets of information is required, right? Not only that all the information you need, you have to choose, because like I said, collecting information, collecting data is costly, right? You have to be aware of that. Okay, what set of information, what kind of information you need, right? Information can be of the variables which you are using to segment your data, segment your consumers or customers, right? So those are your segmentation variable basis. So let's say needs, wants, so that's where you'll conduct a survey or get certain information on that purchase behavior, right? Usage situation, usage rate, decision processes, past behavior. Some information will be available through the scanner data, past behavior data. Some information you have to go and collect from the market, right? Then discriminant variable, right? For each of those respondent, I should have some identifiers, descriptor or identifiers, right? Once I say that, okay, these are my three clusters, so for each cluster I should have a specific description of that cluster, because I cannot target a cluster based on this. I can divide into clusters, but for targeting, when I go to the next stage, at least I should know the socio demographic profile. What is their age, gender, income group, right? If you see, all these information is socio demographic: income, education, profession, lifestyles, media habits, how, like what kind of channel or how many hours they spend on internet, right? Huge occasions, industry. So these are again basically for the B2B scenario. So anyone having doubt in why do we need two different set of variables? So when I say two different set of variables, in the same Excel file it will be there, but one set of variables you are using for your creating segmentation. Second set of variables will help you to describe or identify, or at least help you later on to target that segment. So let's say I created three clusters. So cluster number three, I want to target. Now, which is my cluster three? Let's say cluster three is those people who are using much more social media, and they have been paying premium to use, let's say, this Netflix or premium account, right? but I cannot identify. So that information I do not have in my database to identify or target my customers. So related to that cluster, what are the demographic, socio-demographic variables? Which age group those cluster 3 belong to? Which income group those cluster 3 belong to? Which gender mostly those cluster 3 belong to? Right? Then I can create the description for my cluster, description for my segment. So where is that? Okay, this is somewhere later on. So customers in segment X, customer in segment 3 is highly value, prestige, peace of mind, and are not price sensitive. These are the bases. These I have conducted survey and I've collected information. Based on those questions, I am segmenting that market. Then what I'm identifying, this segment is mostly composed of men with highly income who have been loyal customers for more than 3 years. Because this information will help me to describe the cluster, then only I can target them. Because if I do not have this information, just imagine the scenario, I created a cluster, then what is the use to me? Because in my database, this information will be there. Unless I have this information about what is their gender, what is their income group, what is their like kind of how many years they have been my customers. Only through that information only I can go and send some advertisement, send some pricing offers, all those things. Then only I can target. If I do not have that information, I only have their usage information. I have only their choice, let's say what they require in life, prestige, peace of mind. I cannot identify with that, right? Am I going to every time ask that, okay, do you want prestige or do you want peace of mind? It is not possible. So I need descriptors, identifiers to identify those customers, right? Is this part clear or any questions on this? Why do we need two set of variables?
Sir, could you please explain again?
Yes. So remember why we are doing a clustering. Clustering is not just a mathematical exercise, right? It should help us to find the best cluster or best segment for us to target later on. So when I say target, so when you talk about the targeting, I need to identify first. Then only I can send. Target means what? I'll send certain like advertisement program offers to specific to those customers, right? Or create a product for specific those group of customers, right? If it is long term goal is to create a product for those customers. So for that to happen, I need to identify those customers. And identification will be these kind of identification will be generally socio-demographic, right? Age group wise, income group wise, they are like purchase, like expense group wise. Segmentation will be their choice based, need based segmentation, right? What they need, what they choose, how do they perceive, how much they use, at what situation they use when they're like, let's say we're talking about Netflix or these OTT platforms. We'll take a typical example of Netflix is doing a survey in India to understand what should be their pricing point and what kind of offerings they should provide, right? So now they went and carry out that survey. What kind of new products Netflix would launch, or more movies, or more TV shows, or more documentaries. Uh, then what are the like kind of additional, let's say, options Netflix would give? Because are you able to are you able to download that in your mobile phone, or without additional payment you can see that movie later on, or you can request a new movie, or you can request a new show, right, in Netflix, and Netflix will give that to you within 2 months or 3 months of time. So those are kind of survey questions on which Netflix will go on and create like kind of get those answers and create a segment. So what will happen? So for those questions, what is the like, let's say if I ask a question, what is your usage rate in a scale of 0 to 10? There will be few people who are less low on usage, average on usage, high on usage using Netflix. How much amount of money they are spending? Same thing, low, average, high. Similarly, like kind of what kind of needs or what kind of benefits they want from Netflix, right? So there will be questions related to, on an average, how many movies they want to see in a month, or how many documentaries they want to see in a month, right? So for all those questions, I find my answers. I come back and create my clustering, create my segmentation. Let's say I create two segments or three segments, right? So that segmentation will be done with those questions what I'm getting. But after getting that clustering, after getting that segment, the next step is to identify that segment, right? Understand who are those people who are in this segment 3 or segment 2 or segment 1. Then only I can go and target them, right? Then only I can go and kind of whatever offers or whatever product I want to bring, I can bring out for them. Unless I can identify them, I'll not able to target them, right? So how to identify? So I need some additional information which is describing those people, those describing those respondents. That can be your mostly socio-demographic information, age, income, education, profession, lifestyles, right? So these additional information will help me to identify the cluster in a particular cluster. Who are those customers? Like I was showing, for a particular cluster, age group was 53. Another cluster 2 and cluster 3, 33 and 36. But there was a big difference when we talk about work experience. For 33 age group, the average work experience around 1.9 or 2 years. For the other age group, average work experience was 8 or 9 years. Right. So though that describes the cluster, that describes a particular cluster. Now what I can do, I can go and find out. Let's say cluster number 3 is my target cluster. How will I identify? Those of my customers who are above 36-year-old, having work experience above 8 years, on an average have family size of 4 or family size of 2. That is my cluster number 3. So by using these three variables, age, work experience, and kind of number of family size, I'm able to identify and I'm going to target them, right? So that is where your identifiers or descriptors will come into picture. Is this clear?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. So basically, for to differentiate the segments, we always need descriptors
Yes.
to identify what kind of segments and trying to find out the reach of the variables.
Correct.
That
Correct.
is what it is, right, sir?
Yeah. So once I can identify, then only next step of targeting will come. Unless I can identify, again I cannot target them. Right. So these descriptors are
So
identified.
at max we need only two variables, not more than that.
For identification.
Yes, sir. For building
Uh,
any segmentation database, we need two types of data, as you mentioned in the slide. My question is that, like, we at max we can only have two types of data, right? Not more than that.
Two types of data, not that doesn't mean two types of variables. Variables can be as many as you want. But
Yes,
these
sir. Yes, sir.
two types
Variables
of
can
two
be
types of data. Two
okay.
types of data. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Then generally when you ask question, you ask about the need based and choice based. Choice based, like I said, in comparison to, always has to be in comparison to competitors, right? If I give you 4 or 5 choices, which kind of choices you'll make, right? And the need based, that what are your requirement, right? Are you, like I was telling, are this electric vehicle fulfilling current choices are able to fulfill your needs, right? In terms of battery charging, in terms of sitting capacity, in terms of aesthetics, the look of the vehicle, in terms of power, in terms of mileage, right? These are the needs. And choices, whatever choices are available in the market, are they able to meet your need? If that is not there, if those choices are not able to meet the need, that is my entry point. That is something which I should be targeting, right? Then how many segments? uh, there are two answers to it. One answer defined by your product manager or marketing manager. Marketing leader will say that show me 5 segments or 4 segments, then we'll go ahead, right? Based on his judgment or her judgment. Mathematically, if you see, first you find out from the data, you do exploratory study, how many clusters your data is showing. Then you go ahead and create that many clusters, right? So two approaches of how many segments. One approach is from the business side. Top management might say that create 3 clusters or 4 clusters, or mathematics, the data itself will show you that okay, how many clusters you need to create. Next class, I'll show you those. When you talk about hierarchical clustering and k-means clustering, in k-means clustering, you have to define how many clusters you have to create. In hierarchical clustering, automatically clusters will be created, right? Then you can change, right? How are they defined? Segmentation variables, that is your bases and descriptors, right? How can be they described and reached, right? This is your discriminant variables, right? Descriptors, segmentation variables are bases, right? So overall, if I want to see my segmentation process, right? Planning and design, internal assessment, objective, whether I have resources to carry out this segmentation, right? So this is the overall marketing research, not only for your clustering or segmentation, any kind of market research activities. Database review. First, you go and see that okay, whether I have. So when I say database, not necessarily database in terms of you have a cloud services, all the data being paged and being in the SQL server. It can be as simple as, are you maintaining a Excel database? If it is a very small startup company and it is a B2B company, simple Excel file itself can be play a role of a database, right? Not necessarily you need huge infrastructure for that. But what does it mean? Do you have some data available for your customers, right? Then secondary data, right? Like which is available on internet websites. Prototype implementation exercises, what if relevant groups involved. So before launching a full-fledged going to the market research, right? If let's say you take pilot data, let's say this 2000 data set I have information, right? I create clusters and see that because a market research itself is costly. So what I'm telling in the beginning, if let's say I have potential data, right? If I create clusters, am I able to use that cluster, right? Am I will be able to use that cluster in some way, right? If my answer is yes, yes. If I can describe this cluster, then I can go and target it, right? Then yes, you can go up, right? Like I was giving that example, you can create a very good cluster and you see a very profitable target segment who are willing to pay a lot of money for electric vehicle, which is a SUV, electric SUV. But right now you do not have that product in market. Right now, no other competitors have that kind of product, right? And you do not have a portfolio plan that within 2 years or 3 years you are going to come up with a electric SUV, right? Then that kind of segmentation is not going to help you, right? So with any kind of market research, we do a pilot study in the beginning so that to understand whether our objectives are aligned or not. Then qualitative research, not necessarily every time you'll go for a qualitative research. Sometimes, like I said, when we are doing a need or choice based segmentation, right? Why something is required, right? You can go ahead and carry out this qualitative assessment. Then quantitative measurement, where you go and select that how many sample data you should collect, sample design, questionnaire development, what kind of questions. It can be as simple as 4 to 5 questions in your, then obviously data collection. Then in segmentation analysis, cluster analysis for the customers, portfolio analysis for your products, positioning analysis is along with the competitors. So these are the three difference. Cluster of the customers, portfolio of your products, portfolio of products. Then for each of the product, for each of the segment where those products are positioned, whether you have a correct positioning of your product for those customers, right? So cluster analysis is for customers, portfolio analysis for your own products, positioning analysis for your products in comparison to competitors for your customers, right? Whenever you talk about positioning is always in relative to competitors. Cluster, we are not looking into competitors. Portfolio, we are not looking into competitors. Portfolio, what are our portfolio product? Cluster, who are our customers and who are our profitable customers. Positioning is always in relative to your competitors. Then again, like this is where the targeting will happen. Discriminant, how these groups vary, right? Let's say I created 3 clusters or 4 clusters. How do these clusters vary, right? What are the difference in those clusters, right? That is where the discriminant function will happen, and sometimes the decision tree classification, CRT means classification and regression techniques. If I want to like predict how much amount of money a particular cluster is going to spend on an average in Netflix or in any kind of this OTT platform, then that is where my regression will help, right? Or if I want to predict only whether a customer, particular customer segment will be my take my credit card or not. That is where your classification will have, right? So we'll look into this classification and regression tree. This is basically if I was discussing decision tree in one of the classes, right? This is one part of that. Decision trees generally can be used for classification and regression. Implementation through database tools, right? So that is where your deployment will happen. Once I identify, okay, these are my clusters who are profitable, and I have descriptors for that, and positioning also has happened. I am happy with how customers perceive my product. Now I go and try to convince them that, okay, please buy my product, please buy my credit card, right? So then the next step of implementation, this itself is a very huge task, right? Where the sales team will get involved, so that the call log will happen, a script will be written, what you need to talk to the customers, what kind of language, who will call the customer. That itself is a big science, right? In the call center, sometimes though we do not, or most of the times we do not pick their calls. Managing that call center right now, because it become very irritating, nobody is picking the phone, but every line what they speak, how they speak, whom they speak, everything is science based, right? This is where your database, not only through call center, right? Website, sales call, if it is for, let's say, for a B2B company, right? You need a sales who will go and visit the field, right? Will go and visit the company, right? Then promotions either through the retail outlets, outside promotions or outdoor promotions, or your kind of advertisement. All those things will be through whatever results you get here, right? Any questions on this uh, slide? This is one of the important slide, how you go step by step on segmentation, targeting and position. So this part already we have discussed. This is characteristics that tell us why segments differ. Descriptors are characteristics that help us find and reach segment. This is for the reaching out or targeting segments, right? So consumer market, that is B2C. This is B2B. Bases are most of the times what is their usage, what is their need, what are their choices, right? So that is what we want to understand through survey. Descriptors are basically our socio-demographic information, demographics, psychographics, decision making media. So decision making for a B2B, some of you are in that B2B class, whether it is a centralized purchase or decentralized purchase, how many purchase managers, finance managers are involved. So this information will be required for the salesperson to visit that like kind of company to target or talk or create a sales presentation. So that is where the descriptors will help. But creating a segment, I need what is their annual usage. Let's say I want selling this mask per hospital, right? Annual usage of mask or annual usage of all these syringes, all these kind of items which is required for these hospitals. And as a company, I only will target those people who have an annual usage value of more than, let's say, 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs. Right. For that, I do not need to creating that segment. I do not need these other variables. What is their purchasing organization? What is the personality characteristics of decision makers? If you remember, these are the things which we discussed in B2B. Identifying, because as a salesperson, B2B salesperson, this information I need to go and talk to that people, right? Talk to that business so that my like I can make a sales. This information I need. Without that, I cannot go and make a sales presentation. But creating clustering, I need that what is their usage rate, whether they prefer like what kind of typical kind of their behavior, whether they need always take premium product or whether they always look into the lower cost product. So that is their behavior need. I require to identify those clusters. Sorry, create those clusters. Then once I create those clusters, I need some identifiers or descriptors to identify and go on accordingly make a sales call. Obviously, for B2C, I need their age, income, marital status, all those information, so that accordingly I can promote to them, right? I can create pricing strategy, I can create promotional strategy, I can create product strategy for particular group of customers. Media pattern, level of usage, type of media use, times of use. So if you see like uh, IPL comes, right? I need to have that understanding that okay, how many of them watch IPL, right? How many of my target customers watch IPL? Because if none of them are watching IPL, none of them are interested in IPL, and I'm just putting my advertisement during IPL season, that is a complete mismatch. But I do not need that information to create a cluster. Clustering has been done. But if I have the information about how many of them watch IPL on TV series, or how many of them, let's say, whatever your TV programs regularly they watch, once I have that information, I can put my advertisement. So now I can target by using that information, I can target my customers. Right. So these are the information descriptors which help me as an agency, marketing research agency or company to target my customers. These are the variables which help me to create segmentation. Right. Any questions on this?
No.
So this part already I've discussed. At the end, you have to write, right? And so next class, when you do that exercise, I'll show you how to carry out a detailed exercise in this tool. At the end, for each segment, you have to make this statement, right? Segment one, which is this type of customers, and can be identified by this, right? So one is the basis of segmentation and identification variables you have to put, right? So that will be your class exercise in the next class. Okay, so from this part onwards, we'll discuss in the next class how to like create questions and how to like kind of how does actually segmentation work, right? So we'll stop here for today. You have a quiz at 1:30 p.m. I have a class for your section B. Once that gets completed by 1:20, your quiz will start at 1:30. Please be there on time. So 10 minutes, 10 questions like last time. Okay. So that's all for today. If there are no questions, we'll stop here.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, next class will be using this NCSS software.
Yeah.
Sir, is it similar to like SPSS?
Yes. If you have SPSS, you
Sir,
can use that also.
okay, sir. So because the college that SPSS that came in this laptop that was not working, but we have another like software like SPSS only that is like free to use.
SPSS, are they giving full license? I thought that is only for 1 month.
No, sir, that was a cracked version.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, if you have some SPSS version, because I remember that some of you downloaded SPSS, but that was 1 month trial. You cannot use that. But yes, if you have SPSS, we can use that. And if you want, I can show it in SPSS also. Right. So whichever way, I'll show you in both. I'll show you in NCSS and I'll show you in SPSS also. Right. So you are free to use any tool, right? I do not have any problem if you are using SPSS. I'll
No,
also
because
you both.
this NCSS had a 1 month
Yeah,
trial only, but this one which I have is
yeah,
in
because you
it is
have a yeah, you have
cracked
a
version, so
cracked
it's
version,
working.
right? Yeah, so you have a cracked version, you can use that. Okay. Okay, so that's all for today. Next class we'll go through the clustering, how that works in that software. Then we'll do a exercise. Okay, chalo, take care, bye bye.
Thank you, sir.